Hello, I'm going to talk a little bit about Sharp Knives, the comic written by Anthony Cotter and illustrated by Martin Trafford. This is a very nasty and vicious comic, but far more interesting than what you might expect if I were to describe that to you. It is not just pure nihilism and blood and gore for the sake of blood and gore. There's a very interesting story going on here, and when you come upon the last page of this first issue, you'll realize it's intended to be a series, so here's to hoping we get to see more of this and that the proper support comes to kind of hold this title up, because this is the kind of story you can see becoming a very interesting television series or movie for that matter. It's a good story. It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure because obviously in the fantasy you are following this killer along on his escapades, I guess you could call them. He is up to some very, very bad stuff, but it's not just sheer blatant cruelty, which I just can't stand, even in fantasy. In fantasy we permit a lot of stuff to go on because it's not real. But following a killer, I'm not interested to see a killer just doing god awful things to innocent people. That's the thing. That's the thing of these. It's like when Hannibal offed somebody. Sometimes you're like, well, that guy really didn't have it coming. It's just fantasy, but still the emotional responses. Oh, but then you just don't really feel good about it. But then when Hannibal took out somebody really bad, god awful, then there's that satisfaction that comes with that. Say that was a really nasty character that just got taken out there, and it was pretty brutal. Maybe he didn't deserve that kind of brutality, but I feel a little good that guy got it. Not some innocent person. So that's how this comic kind of struck me. It's a killer who I don't know what his beef is. I don't know what his deal is. It gets a little into his background and how he became addicted to blood and carnage in his own kind of way. And it's interesting, just the emotional turmoil and just the kind of sleazy, nasty world he lives in. And I guess it almost felt a little bit like Taxi Driver. And even the location, it starts off in a beachfront location and moves downtown into a nightclub, a snazzy nightclub. Florida was mentioned in a flashback. I don't know where this comic actually takes place, but I couldn't help but feel like the locale was similar to Miami Vice. Anyway, before I lose myself here. Yeah, he's the killer. I think Jeff is his name. He reveals his name. He's infiltrating the family of a crime lord. Somebody who's a businessman and employs very many people, but is very shady, very shifty. Probably a very very bad businessman, a very bad character. So I'm really interested to see what his beef is, what his plot is, what his design is. You might compare it. It's not really like anything else. I mentioned Hannibal. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Dexter, a little bit, because you're watching. I don't know if you'd call this character from Sharp Knives even an anti-hero. He's definitely he's a bad guy. It's kind of hard to root for this guy. So. It's that strange situation where there's really no good guys or bad guys straight up. It feels like there's just a lot of bad guys, and maybe some kind of cosmic interplay is going on where this really bad character exists and maybe make some other bad characters go away. But definitely there's some innocents that get taken out in the. Don't get your hopes up too much. There's some innocent people get it for just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So yeah, it's a conversation piece. I think it's like a lot of these horror films where you can't just there's not one solid good guy and one solid bad guy. Just everyone's kind of lousy, but you're hoping maybe the chain of events will lead to the really bad people getting taken out of the picture. Okay, so that's it. That's the comic. I think Anthony Cotter is a very good storyteller, and I think it's a perfect match, him and Trafford. I've watched Trafford's art for a while. I've been really inspired and motivated by him. And just there's definitely a proliferation of his work out there. I mean, I watch his Facebook page, but his art's popping up all over the place. All these underground films and what have you. So he's very busy, and that's really cool to see. I mean, I obviously discovered him by being a fan of horror and coming across his work that was attached to franchises that I was a big fan for, a big geek for, and realized he's a very like-minded in his tastes. Yeah, so sorry, I'm getting distracted. The cat's over there, making sure he's not up to any trouble. Okay. Sorry. Oh yeah. So it's just it's a perfect match. Trafford and Cotter here, and the product they've made is once again it's not for kids, but it is what it is. It's horror. It's a sketchy, creepy, vicious horror, and it's a good read. I definitely recommend you support this title if you're a horror fan, and old enough to know fantasy from reality, obviously. If you're not, then you have no business, I don't know, even, you know, you should be locked up somewhere. Yeah, so there's I believe it's an Indiegogo campaign is still going on, hopefully by the time you see this video. It's running short, but even if you miss it, anything y'all can do to support this title. It's a lot of hard work invested into this, and I think it's something good. And I'll be honest, even with such a huge comic industry these days, I gotta admit there's not a whole lot out there I'm really interested to spend my money on, and I get to save more money that way. But at the same time, it's also when something comes along like this that I think is really great, I'm like, oh, well, that's that's worth the time and money. So. Thank you, Martin and Anthony, for the advance. I hope this video does it justice to your kindness there. I'm sure there's more to say, and if y'all have time, if I haven't sold it yet, if I haven't made my point, just because there's no time limit on this video. Oh yeah, well Trafford's art is definitely is just perfect for this kind of story. I guess I've elaborated enough on that. Yeah, and I've said it already, but I'll just one more time to stress the point. I'm very interested to see where this goes. I love the design approach. It's very typical of what you see in Trafford's art. It's very distinct. You know, you will recognize his art style. You see it once or twice, and you'll recognize it next time, right off the bat. Very cool, very slick, stylish illustration approach in this. Well, I'm sure some other details are going to pop into my head as soon as I turn this camera off, but I'm just going to leave it there for now. So yeah. So support Sharpe Knives. Check it out. And if you're a producer and you're looking for a really, really nasty but awesome and satisfying horror caper, Sharpe Knives. Yes. And yeah, and then check out my work when you're done. Okay. God bless you all. Take care. Bye.